Let's talk about an extraordinary car project today that could be the pinnacle of combustion engine sports cars. The Aston Martin Valkyrie. Viewers asked me to do videos about this for a long time and, because there is so much to explain, it took a while. But now let's dive right into it. To understand the Valkyrie project and what makes it so special, we first need to understand its background. So let's go back to the year 2004. Until then, the Austrian energy drink company Red Bull had been main sponsor and shareholder at Sauber and sponsored Austrian F1 driver Christian Klien. But Red Bull wanted more, and when the opportunity came up to buy the old Jaguar team at the end of the 2004 season, they made the deal. Now, for Red Bull boss Dietrich Mateschitz, F1 is not just a hobby and money pit. He wanted to build a successful team that could compete for the title in the long term. To do this, there were three key positions to be filled. He needed an experienced motorsport consultant, he needed a successful team boss, and a capable technical director to turn the old Jaguar cars into successful machines. His motorsport consultant is since the 1990s fellow Austrian race driver and team boss Dr. Helmut Marko, who is also about the same age. He was responsible for the Red Bull Junior team since 2003, and the purchase of the Jaguar F1 team in Milton Keynes brought him back to F1. As team boss, they appointed the young successful team owner Christian Horner. For the position of technical director, it was clear that they would need a top name, and there was the highly decorated star designer Adrian Newey sitting rather demotivated in his McLaren cage. Horner later described Newey as an artist and not just a designer. And artists need freedom, something the young Red Bull F1 team could offer, so Newey accepted. Success is what drives Adrian Newey, and the challenge was huge. The team needed a couple of years to sort itself and build its internal structures. With the huge rule change for the 2009 season, their time had come and they could compete for the title. In the following 4 years, Red Bull won both championships each year. With his dominance, Adrian Newey had reached what he was aiming for, and so he started looking for new challenges. For Red Bull, on the other hand, it was paramount to keep him on board. Therefore, they allowed him to take a few steps back from the active F1 business, but while keep being technical director. And they gave him an environment where he could do whatever he liked. And so he started designing sailing yachts for the America's Cup, and there was another childhood dream in his head: building the ultimate street-legal sports car. A new entity within Red Bull called Red Bull Advanced Technologies was set up to use Formula One knowledge in other areas. Additionally, Andy Palmer, COO of Red Bull's main sponsor Nissan Infiniti, became CEO of Aston Martin in 2014. So suddenly there was Red Bull Advanced Technologies, which applies F1 tech in other areas on one side, and a direct, well-known contact on top of the sports car manufacturer on the other side. So it was no surprise that the Infiniti sponsorship ended 1 year after Palmer left the company, and the partnership with Aston Martin started in 2016. This was the perfect playground now for Adrian Newey to fulfill his childhood dream, and a good reason to stay at Red Bull. On the other hand, Red Bull had a new attractive title sponsor. So both companies worked together and presented the first design model of the Valkyrie, named as AMRB001, in 2016. But Newey's concept had nothing to do with Aston Martin's cars, and there were no compromises. So he could basically start with a blank sheet of paper. Newey was one of the first graduates at Southampton University for race car aerodynamics, and he was always focused on ground effect. At the end of the 1970s, the big topic in F1. So it's no wonder that the Valkyrie is built around the ground effect. This was the story of how the Valkyrie project started from the Red Bull side, but there is also another less known story of how the Valkyrie project started at Aston Martin. And I want to summarize it briefly. You can find a detailed report in the description below. Aston Martin had the largest and most profitable dealership in St. Gallen, Switzerland. Because of its high-profile customers, this relationship also sold most of the highly profitable special models of the brand. In 2013, when the big hype around the new generation of supercars, the Ferrari, Porsche 918 and McLaren P1 happened, the Swiss thought it might be a good idea for Aston Martin to join the club, and create a mid-engined supercar. They knew lots of their customers would be interested and hence approached then Aston Martin CEO Ulrich Beetz. But he wasn't interested, so when Andy Palmer became CEO of Aston Martin in 2014, they presented the idea to him again, and he liked it. Also the board thought it would be a good idea, and they made a deal with the people from St. Gallen. In the meantime, the Swiss founded a company for this project called Nebula. Details about the deal between Aston Martin and Nebula are not public, but it was agreed that Aston Martin would pay a certain royalty per car to Nebula for coming up with the idea and selling the cars for Aston Martin. A deal which should run for 10 years. Also, customers could order their cars at Nebula and the company collected the prepayments and sent it to the UK to Aston Martin. So, also from Aston Martin's side, there was an interest in a new hypercar and the connection with Red Bull and Adrian Newey seemed like a win-win situation. But the story continues. The Valkyrie project wasn't cheap and in fact got more expensive during its development. Aston Martin got into financial trouble and needed a serious injection of cash. That came in 2020 when Lawrence Stroll came in. Stroll fired CEO Palmer and hence the partnership with Red Bull was terminated shortly after. New CEO became AMG boss Tobias Moers. The Valkyrie project was far advanced, development costs were high, and even if they would start selling cars, they would still have to pay a royalty to Nebula, the company that also collected the prepayments years before. And now, suddenly, in mid-2021, Aston Martin filed a lawsuit against the Swiss company Nebula, accusing them of withholding the prepayments customers did and terminating the agreement between both companies with immediate effect. The lawsuit will take years and until there is a result, the agreements are obsolete. The question is, did Nebula really hold the prepayments back? And if they did, why is Aston Martin suing them 4 to 5 years later and not immediately? Aston Martin pushed to get the car out now to finish the project and cut costs. The concept will be picked up by the more civil Valhalla, but will be much more profitable and still benefits from the Valkyrie's extreme concept. Creating supercars is never easy, and only the fact that the Valkyrie is coming to customers now is an amazing achievement. Because certain parties were at the right spot at the right time, this project could happen. Unfortunately, where there is light, there is also shadow, also in this project. I hope you liked this little insight and see you at the next video.